120/80. That single number has been printed on the wall chart of nearly every doctor's office in America for decades. And if you ask 10 physicians what a healthy blood pressure looks like, 9 of them will say it without hesitation. Here's what most people get wrong about that number. It was never designed with a 70-year-old body in mind. In 2015, the largest blood pressure trial in modern American history, a study called SPRINT, made headlines by showing that pushing systolic pressure down toward 120 appeared to save lives. That trial changed the guidelines. It changed how millions of prescriptions get written. And buried inside that same trial is a measurement detail, a detail about how those blood pressures were actually taken. That means the 120 in the study is not the same 120 your doctor writes down in the exam room. If you are over 60, that gap can be the difference between a well-chosen target and a dizzy spell at the top of the stairs. Over the next 25 minutes, I'm going to walk you through what SPRINT actually found, and the measurement detail almost nobody explains. Why arteries over 60 behave differently than arteries at 40, and what that does to your numbers. The diastolic floor, the bottom number that, in several large analyses, may matter more after 60 than the top one. The exact 7-day home measurement routine that produces numbers your doctor can actually use. And the 5 specific questions to bring to your next appointment, so the target you're given fits your body and not a chart printed for somebody half your age. One more thing before we start. There is a group of patients in these trials, people in their 80s, where the winning target wasn't 120 at all. It was a number most people today would call high. I'll show you that study before we're done, because it changes how you should think about every target you've ever been given. Let me lay out the plan precisely so you know what you're getting. Promise number 1 is what the SPRINT trial really measured, including the unattended automated reading protocol that makes the trial's 120 behave more like a 125 or even a 130 in a normal office visit. Promise number 2 is the water tower explanation of why systolic climbs and diastolic falls after 60, and why that pattern changes which numbers deserve your attention. Promise number 3 is the diastolic floor, the specific bottom number from a 2016 analysis published in The Lancet, below which heart risk appeared to rise rather than fall. Promise number 4 is a 7-day, twice-a-day home measurement routine with exact positioning and timing that produces an average your doctor can actually act on. And promise number 5 is the 5 questions, including one about standing blood pressure, that can protect you from the single most common treatment mistake I see in adults over 60. I'm a physician, and the bulk of my clinic week is spent with adults over 60 managing blood pressure, which means I watch the same patterns repeat season after season. One quick note before we go further. This video is education, not medical advice. Never start, stop, or change a medication because of something you saw on the internet, and that includes this channel. Take what you learn here to your own doctor, because your history, your kidneys, and your medication list all change the answer. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Eleanor. The details are changed, and she's a composite of many patients like her, but the pattern is exactly what I see. Eleanor is 74. She lives alone in a 2-story house in Dayton, Ohio, where she raised 3 kids, and where she still does her own gardening. For 6 years, her blood pressure sat around 138/76 on a single low-dose medication. She felt good. She walked 2 miles most mornings. Then, at a routine visit in the fall, a new physician in the practice looked at her chart, referenced the newer guidelines, and told her the goal was now under 120. A second medication was added. 6 weeks later, her office reading was 122/68, and the chart said controlled. What the chart did not say was that Eleanor had started holding the banister with both hands. It did not say that when she stood up from her recliner, the room grayed out at the edges for 2 or 3 seconds. Nobody had ever measured her blood pressure standing up, so nobody knew that hers was dropping into the high 90s when she got to her feet. On a Tuesday night in January, Eleanor got up at 2 in the morning to use the bathroom, stood too quickly, and went down in the hallway. She broke her left wrist in 2 places. She spent 5 hours in the emergency department, 6 weeks in a cast, and 4 months afraid of her own staircase. For a 74-year-old woman living alone, a fall like that is not an inconvenience. Hip fractures in this age group carry serious long-term consequences, and Eleanor knew it, which is why the fear lasted longer than the cast. Now here is the part that matters. Eleanor's seated office numbers were, on paper, a success. The target had been hit. The problem is that the target came from a chart, and the chart didn't know that Eleanor was 74, that her arteries had stiffened in a very particular way, or that her pressure fell off a cliff when she stood. I'm not telling you Eleanor's story because she's unusual. I'm telling you her story because she is exactly typical of the patient this conversation is for, and the questions nobody asked her, about standing pressure, about how the target was chosen, about what her bottom number was doing, are the same questions most adults over 60 have never been asked either. So why does this happen? The mechanism, in plain English, is that an artery at 70 is not the same piece of equipment as an artery at 40, and a single universal target ignores that. Think of your circulation like a small town's water system. The town doesn't pump water straight to your faucet. It pumps water up into a water tower, and the tower's stored pressure keeps every tap in town running smooth and steady, even between pump strokes. Your aorta, the large artery leaving your heart, is that water tower. When you're young, it's elastic. Every heartbeat it stretches to absorb the surge, then recoils to keep blood flowing gently between beats. That stretch and recoil is why a young person's numbers sit close together, something like 115/75. With age, the elastic fibers in that artery wall, made of a protein called elastin, gradually fray and get replaced with stiffer collagen, and calcium deposits build in the wall. It happens to essentially everyone to some degree. It is the water tower slowly turning from a rubber balloon into a concrete tank. A concrete tank can't absorb the surge, so the pressure spike with each heartbeat runs higher. That's your systolic number climbing. And a concrete tank can't recoil between beats, so the pressure between heartbeats sags lower. That's your diastolic number falling. This is why so many people over 65 develop what's called isolated systolic hypertension, a top number of 150 with a bottom number of 70, and it's why the gap between your two numbers tends to widen with every decade. Here's why the falling bottom number is not just trivia. Your heart muscle feeds itself through the coronary arteries, and those arteries fill mostly between beats during diastole. Push the bottom number too low, and in some patients you may start shortchanging the heart's own blood supply. A 2016 analysis in The Lancet, drawn from a registry of over 22,000 patients with coronary artery disease, found that risk of heart attack and cardiovascular death rose when diastolic pressure fell below roughly 60 to 70, a pattern researchers call the J-curve. Now, the promised detail about SPRINT. In that trial, blood pressure was measured with an automated cuff after the patient sat alone in a quiet room for 5 minutes, in many cases with no staff present at all, and the machine averaged 3 readings. That is nothing like a typical office visit, where the cuff goes on 30 seconds after you sat down, mid-conversation, after you rushed from the parking lot. Multiple comparison studies suggest routine office readings run somewhere around 5 to 10 points higher than these unattended automated readings. So the SPRINT intensive group's average of about 121 may correspond to something like the upper 120s in an ordinary exam room. Which means a doctor who drives an ordinary office reading all the way down to 120 may be treating well below anything the trial ever tested. And one more caveat that gets lost. SPRINT excluded people with diabetes and people with prior strokes, so its results don't automatically transfer to them. Go back to Eleanor. Her office 122, taken 30 seconds after she sat down, was very likely an unattended reading in the low 1-teens. Her treatment hadn't matched the famous trial. It had quietly overshot it. Let me show you how differently this plays out in 3 more patients, because the lesson is not one size fits all, and it is definitely not that lower is always wrong. First, a man I'll call Walter, 68, a retired electrician in Tucson, Arizona. Walter's office readings ran 152, 156, 149, 3 visits in a row, and his doctor reasonably started talking about adding a second medication. But Walter is a man who gets tense in medical buildings, has since a heart scare in his 40s. When he finally did a proper 7-day home protocol, the one I'll give you in a few minutes, his home average came back 133/79. That difference, elevated readings in the clinic with acceptable readings at home, has a name, white coat effect, and it shows up in a meaningful share of older adults. Walter didn't need a second pill. He needed better data. His doctor kept the plan, rechecked home averages every 3 months, and Walter avoided a medication and its side effects entirely. Second, a woman I'll call Margaret, 81, in Burlington, Vermont. Margaret's systolic ran around 144, and the temptation was to push it down hard. But her diastolic was already 58. She'd been feeling drained on her afternoon walks, with a heaviness in her chest on hills that nobody had connected to anything. Margaret is exactly the patient the Lancet J-curve data describes, a stiff water tower with a wide gap between the numbers, where forcing the top number down risks dragging an already low bottom number toward the floor. And for her age group, there's a specific landmark. The HIVET trial, published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2008, studied people 80 and older, and its treatment goal was a systolic under 150, not 120, 150. And even at that modest target, treatment cut strokes and reduced overall mortality compared to no treatment. Margaret's doctor adjusted her medication timing, accepted a systolic in the low 140s, watched the diastolic, and her afternoon symptoms eased. Third, so you don't walk away with the wrong lesson, a man I'll call Raymond, 63, in Charlotte, North Carolina. Raymond is fit, cycles 100 miles a week, takes no medications, and assumed his 158 systolic was a fluke of a bad morning. His 7-day home average said otherwise, 154/92, confirmed, real, and sustained. For a man like Raymond, younger, no frailty, no dizziness, healthy diastolic, tighter control genuinely may pay off. A 2021 trial from China called the STEP trial, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, randomized adults 60 to 70 to a systolic target of 110 to 130 versus 130 to 150, and the tighter group had roughly a 26% lower rate of cardiovascular events. Raymond started treatment, tolerated it well, and his home average now sits near 128. 3 patients over 60, 3 completely different right answers. That is the actual message of the research. So here is exactly what to do with all of this, in order, starting this week. Step 1. Build a real baseline with a 7-day home measurement routine, because every other decision depends on trustworthy numbers. Use a validated upper arm cuff, not a wrist or finger device, and make sure the cuff size matches your arm, because a too small cuff can read falsely high by 5 to 10 points. Measure twice a day, morning before any medications and evening before dinner. Each time, sit quietly for 5 full minutes first. Back supported against the chair, both feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, and the cuffed arm resting on a table at the level of your heart. No caffeine, no exercise, and no smoking in the 30 minutes before. No talking during the reading, and that includes whoever is in the kitchen with you. Take 2 readings 1 minute apart and write both down, top number, bottom number, and pulse. Do that for 7 days. Throw out day 1 because first days run high, and average everything else. That average is the number your doctor should be looking at. And for reference, home readings run a little lower than office readings, which is why guidelines generally treat a home average of about 135/85 as roughly equivalent to 140/90 in the clinic. Step 2. Once during that week, check your standing pressure, because this is the check that was never done for Eleanor. After your normal seated readings, stand up and measure again at the 1-minute mark and the 3-minute mark. If your systolic drops by 20 points or more, or your diastolic by 10 or more, or if you feel lightheaded when you stand, write it down and tell your doctor. That pattern is called orthostatic hypotension. It becomes more common with age and with blood pressure medication, and it is one of the most fixable fall risks in medicine. But only if somebody actually measures it. Step 3. Look at your bottom number, not just your top one. Go through your 7-day log and note whether your diastolic regularly sits below about 65. Given the coronary filling mechanism we walked through and the J-curve pattern in the Lancet data, a consistently low diastolic is worth an explicit conversation, especially if you have known heart disease or you're being asked to tighten your systolic target. Do not adjust anything yourself. Flag it. Step 4. Bring 5 questions to your next appointment, written down. Question 1. Given my age, my kidney function, and my other conditions, what is my personal systolic target, and which trial or guideline is it based on? Question 2. Was my office reading taken after 5 minutes of quiet rest? And if not, will you use my 7-day home average instead? Question 3. Is my diastolic pressure getting too low? And at what number would you want to back off? Question 4. Can we check my standing blood pressure today? Question 5. If we do tighten my target, how will we monitor for dizziness, falls, and kidney changes over the following months? A doctor who hears those 5 questions knows immediately they're talking to someone worth partnering with, and in my experience, the entire conversation changes. Step 5. Work the levers that lower the top number without dragging the bottom one through the floor, because these help at every target. Sodium is the biggest one, and the American Heart Association points to an ideal of about 1,500 milligrams a day for most adults with elevated blood pressure, which for most people means the packaged and restaurant food, not the salt shaker. Isometric exercise is the most underused one. A 2023 meta-analysis in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, covering 270 studies, found isometric holds like wall sits lowered systolic pressure by roughly 8 points on average, which rivals some medications. Something like 4 rounds of a 2-minute wall hold, a few days a week, though please clear any new exercise with your doctor first, especially if you have heart disease. Add consistent sleep, 7 to 8 hours, since fragmented sleep and untreated sleep apnea both push pressure upward. None of this replaces medication when medication is needed. All of it makes every target easier to hit safely. Before we close the loop, there's one number in your log that almost nobody discusses, and it may be the most informative one you own. Take any reading and subtract the bottom number from the top. 140/70 gives you 70. That result is called your pulse pressure, and it is essentially a live gauge of the water tower, a rough read on how stiff your large arteries have become. A gap under about 50 is typical of more elastic arteries. In long-running cohort research, including the Framingham data, a persistently wide pulse pressure, above roughly 60 in older adults, predicted heart risk as well as or better than the systolic number alone. Here's why it's useful to you specifically. If your pulse pressure is wide, it tells you and your doctor that pushing your systolic down will likely pull your diastolic down with it, point for point. Which makes the diastolic floor conversation from earlier essential before any target gets tightened. 2 caveats, and they matter. A single reading means nothing. Pulse pressure bounces around, so only calculate it from your 7-day average. And this is not a number to self-diagnose with or lose sleep over. It is a number to compute, right at the top of your log, and hand to your physician with the question, "Does my pulse pressure change what target makes sense for me?" In my experience, that one question moves the appointment from reciting a chart to actually practicing medicine. So let's resolve where we started. 120/80 is not a myth, and it is not a conspiracy. It's a reasonable reference point that came from trials with specific measurement methods and specific patients, and it may fit some 65-year-olds like Raymond quite well. But Sprint's 120 was an unattended, resting, machine-averaged 120, several points below what the same body shows in a normal exam room. The Hivet trial won with a target of 150 in patients over 80. The Lancet analysis suggests the bottom number has a floor that deserves respect. The right question after 60 was never what does the wall chart say. It was always what target fits this body, these arteries, this diastolic, this standing pressure. And the tools to answer it cost you a home cuff, 7 days of 5-minute measurements, and 5 written questions at 1 appointment. Eleanor eventually got that appointment. Her second medication was reduced, her standing pressure normalized, her seated average settled around 134, and she's back to 2 miles most mornings, holding the banister out of habit now, not fear. That outcome didn't require a breakthrough. It required the right questions. If this video gave you those questions, the single most helpful thing you can do is hit the like button and subscribe, because it genuinely tells YouTube to show this to other adults over 60 who are managing these same numbers with half the information. And next time, we're covering the morning surge, why your blood pressure is at its highest and riskiest between 6 and 10 a.m., and what the research says about the timing of your medications. One last thing. If you have a spouse, a brother, a sister, or a friend over 60 who takes blood pressure medication and has never once had their standing pressure checked, send them this video today, because the fall that check prevents is the one that never makes it into anyone's chart. Take care of your heart, and I'll see you in the next one.